Yeah, hit the likes and subs. Oh, yeah, they're in full coat mode right now. That's right.
Wow. Let's not take up all the seats over here. We got Joe Moore, dude. Shout out Joe Moore. We got a great chat this morning. Stadium's filled. Great to be here. Great to have another day on this beautiful earth. Shout out to all the people listening in the future. Thank you. That means a lot. I was being pretty vague last time I was streaming. I was talking about how grateful I am to have an audience. And even here with 3 viewers, there's another streamer right now. I'm not going to say his name. He stole my time slot. He's actually streaming right now. It's no big deal. He's allowed to do that. But I was talking about a streamer who has, well, how many subs this guy have? And I don't mean to talk shit on the guy, but I kind of am, dude. And I'm just grateful I have an audience. This guy's named Jake Weddle. And I was talking about streamers who have a really large subscriber count, but they don't get a lot of people watching their live streams. And this guy's he's a stand-up comedian, apparently, and he live streams, and he has 167,000 subscribers. He was streaming yesterday, and 2 people were watching him. I was like, holy shit. You suck at whatever you're trying to do. If I had 167,000 subscribers and I only had 2 people watching me, I'd hang up the mic. I'd be done. I'd be like, what am I doing? This is awful. I'm wasting my fucking time. But I think it's because he has they, them pronouns in his YouTube. It's Jake Weddle and / they, them. Call me they, them, dude. Yuck, dude. I don't know why people feel compelled to tell you their pronouns. Fuck off. You're a he, him, by the way. You're not a they, them. Shout out to the chat, dude. We got hello. And we got Abe Dinkus. God bless you, Bravo. Liked. I'm off to bed. Oh, my gosh. Well, good night, dude. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate that. That's nice. I realize sometimes when I'm being vague, people might, sometimes other streamers listen to me and they could misinterpret what I'm saying and think I'm talking about them. So I was like, I should be specific about that so nobody thinks I'm talking shit on them. I usually don't talk shit on anybody, really. I usually don't like talking about other streamers at all. But just as a case note, if you're interested in Jake Weddle, who the hell I'm talking about, it's Jake, JakeWeddle, Jake Weddle. And the reason I found Jake Weddle was he made like a scathing video about Mr. Beast, and it got like 1-point-something million views. How many views did that get? 1.4 million views. The real reason I left Mr. Beast. It's like, what is this Mr. Beast drama? That's how I found him. And now he streams playing video games. Video game streamers are interesting. I kind of like, video games at times, and I kind of just absolutely loathe and detest them. I've talked about video games before, but I don't think I'll talk about it now. I've been really thinking about how to make a short story long, and I was reflecting on that. What's up, Ascended Views? No, be intentionally vague so people up their game. I should be. I like vaguing. I should vague more. I was thinking about how I'm trying to, I have stories in my life that I want to tell or experiences. But the worst part is like I tend to tell stories like a man. I get kind of straight to the point. And I need to be better at making a short story long. And I was realizing that's exactly what women do. They will make a short story incredibly long, and it's arduous. It's difficult to listen to. I've met a lot of people like this. I've even met some men who tell stories like women. I'm like, holy shit, dude, just get to the point. What are you trying to say? What are you saying? I don't need all this detail. And sometimes, I like long stories. If you're good at telling a long story or the long story's interesting, and I've really been like, well, I want to be better at making a short story long, but I don't want it to come at the cost of sounding incredibly boring and coming across feminized. Ooh. That would be awful. I got to work on that. Video game streams struggle with long-term engagement and consistent entertainment. Unless you are specifically interested in that particular game, they're streaming, or if you really like the creator. Yeah. I think video game streaming is dying. I think it was very popular at one point. I mean, the pandemic just was a boom for any content creator. It was a boom for podcasting, a boom for streamers. of anything really, because people had free time. They had so much free time to just veg out and watch streaming. Now I think podcasting is done. I think streaming is on the rise. You see, how popular is streaming? Well, Andrew Wilson got on the Joe Rogan Experience. I was like, holy shit. Congratulations to Andrew Wilson. That's pretty awesome. I think he absolutely deserves it. But that's how popular streaming is right now. Is that one of the most super chatted streamers in the world is currently, or was on the Joe Rogan Experience, which is, I think, a big deal for all streamers. Next up, I bet, is Nick Fuentes. I think Joe Rogan's game plan, I don't think Andrew Wilson knows this. This is just my theory, that Joe Rogan's got a long-term plan to bring Andrew Wilson on. I mean, not Andrew Wilson, excuse me, Nick Fuentes on. But in order to have Nick Fuentes on, he has to soften the blow a little bit. So he brings on somebody like Nick Fuentes adjacent, someone on the right. I don't know if Andrew Wilson's like a political talking head. I see Andrew Wilson more as a debater / entertainer. And there's a lot of people in my circles and other circles, and a lot of people who, don't really see eye to eye with Andrew Wilson and don't get along with him, which is fine. I appreciate what Andrew Wilson's skills are. He's absolutely a skilled entertainer, and he's putting a spotlight on the whole YouTube stream. Like, he's a YouTube streamer, and he got on Joe Rogan. I don't know. There's been plenty of YouTube content creators that have gone on Joe Rogan, but most of their stuff I feel like was long form content, like videos and whatever, what have you. I don't know how many other streamers, quote unquote, have been on Joe Rogan. I think it definitely opens the door. Nick Fuentes is absolutely going to be next. And, I listened to about half of the Andrew Wilson podcast with Joe Rogan. And I think podcasting is dying 100%. I think, there's only so many topics out there in the world, right? And when podcasting was first coming out, and it was like in its infancy and its adolescence and its young adulthood, everything was fresh, right? So Joe Rogan was interesting when he brought on Bert Kreischer the first time. People were like, wow, Bert Kreischer, Joe Rogan. Now if Bert Kreischer goes on Joe Rogan, people are like, holy shit, not again. If Tom Segura goes on Joe Rogan, people are like, oh my gosh, I've heard this. So even Joe Rogan's in a bit of a podcasting pickle where, he's running out of people. That's just the truth. He's running out of people to bring on the show. And most podcasts are like this. There's just, everyone's talked to everyone. Comedians have been on each other's podcasts 10 times already. Scientists, researchers have been on the shows. CIA agents have been on the shows. How many times are you going to bring on the same CIA agent? How many times are you going to have Randall Carlson and Graham Hancock on to tell you the same thing you've already heard? They might share one story where you're like, oh, I didn't know that. But everything else you guys talked about, I was familiar with. So I think podcasting I think the bubbles maybe popped. But now, Joe Rogan's looking at the landscape, and who does he bring on? Who hasn't he talked to? Well, he hasn't really talked to a lot of streamers. Maybe Destiny's next. Maybe Destiny comes on the Joe Rogan Experience, because people are going to push back and say, Joe Rogan's just a right-wing talking mouthpiece, and Joe Rogan's going to balance that out and bring on Destiny, which I don't know if he will. He's going to bring on somebody. He's going to bring on more live streamers, right? He's going to bring on more live streamers. Live streamers I think it is definitely going to replace podcasting, and it already has replaced podcasting in a lot of ways. People want things now. They want it live. They want it fresh. They want that fresh content. And, podcasting used to be live for Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan used to do live podcasting, and then he went to pre-recorded, which is, a choice. But the difference between a live show and a pre-recorded show, there is an absolute difference. There's something to a live show, like, they might say something they shouldn't say. It's risky. It's a risky business. What's up, buddy Boo? I would say Andrew is as you described him, debater and entertainer. Yeah, that's right. We're in agreement. I watched a little bit of that Joe Rogan, then I had a bad case of yawn. Yeah, it was just a conversation. It was really a conversation. I'm waiting for Jay Dyer to get on JRE. Would be pretty entertaining with the topics they discuss. Yeah, Jay Dyer, nothing against Andrew Wilson. I think Jay Dyer would be more interesting in a lot of ways because he has interests that align with Joe Rogan. Jay Dyer's, he's not a conspiracy theorist, but he's absolutely, I don't know, maybe is Jay Dyer a conspiracy theorist? He knows enough about conspiracy theories and the occult that I think Joe Rogan would really enjoy having a conversation with him. They talk about a lot of things that I'm interested in, the occult, the New World Agenda. I think topic-wise that would be a much more entertaining conversation. Definitely a sign of the end of Joe Rogan. That was a mediocre interview. Yeah, it was an interview would put it lightly. It's been over for a while. Koof Era Joe was at its highest in views, I believe, but now it's going down. Everybody's views were the highest during the pandemic, by the way. You look at people's, a lot of content creators, a lot of their, if you sort by popular or the things they made, almost everything was the most popular during the pandemic. It was what a time to be a content creator. And I absolutely missed most of it. That would have been, I should have taken advantage. And his interviewing skills have decreased over the last few years. Interesting take, totally agree. Although I never really got into Joe Rogan's interviews that much anyway. It was a lot of new age BS, tons of that. I agree, Jay would have been a little more interesting for that kind of stuff. Yeah, I like occult, whether, I just find it interesting. Jay Dyer is a wealth of information. And Andrew Wilson, his skill set is in debating and challenging other people's views. And him and Joe Rogan, I haven't listened to the whole thing, but I don't think they were there to debate each other. But I'll have to listen to the rest of it. But I'm happy for Andrew Wilson. Whether you like Andrew Wilson or not, if you're a streamer, it's a good sign. I suppose that another streamer has broken through to the top. And he did it in a short period of time. I remember, I feel like I was there in the infancy of his crucible career. I don't know where I subscribed, but I remember him only having a couple hundred viewers. I feel like I remember him being at 100 to 200 viewers and watching him. And to see his rise, it's a good, some people think it's suspicious, but I think he worked hard. He figured it out. And he did a fantastic job in creating a YouTube career. And he made a good blueprint for other content creators and how to be successful. I think there's a lot of good things you could say about Andrew Wilson. And of course you could critique him. People have made entire YouTube, they've etched themselves in their YouTube corners of being Andrew Wilson criticizers, trying to pick up the scraps by mentioning his name, which is a tried and true YouTube path, is talk shit on other people, get their attention. But, what's next? I think Nick Fuentes is next. And that's kind of the path I see forward. But in general, when I think about podcasting, I think it's like comedy. Comedy, people say, is dying. The comedy bubble has also popped. I think comedy is a lot like rap music, which I don't really listen to anymore. most rappers, eventually a good rapper might, or a good hip hop artist might talk about their life and the struggles of it. And then eventually it becomes, their music becomes a reflection of the life of success, and it's not relatable anymore. I think this is maybe true for a lot of musical talents. When they first come out, there's a lot of heart and soul in their music, and then they get money, and they don't become relatable. And I think that's what happened to a lot of comedians. Some examples people point to is like Tom Segura. Tom Segura used to be a relatable comedian. And then when you get enough cars, a big enough house, lots of watches, and you're taking private jets or first class all the time, you lose the funny. Losing the funny is the worst thing that can happen to a comedian, but you lose the relatability, right? You no longer see your audience and yourself as like one thing. You start to see distinctions. Like when comedians first start, there's not a lot of difference between the comedian on stage and the person sitting in the crowd. In fact, the person sitting in the crowd might be, in some sense, more successful than the comedian on stage. But the relatability needs to be there. And I've been thinking about my own relatability to my audience, and I was trying to think of stories I can tell about my life. But what's relatable, dude? I was like, I'm trying to think of stories of how do I tell a story about me doing dishes, or me vacuuming, or me doing laundry? And I'm doing all these things. I'm like, there is no story when it comes to doing laundry. There is no story I can tell when I'm doing dishes. This is just, it's relatable. It's certainly relatable to most people, but there's nothing interesting there. It's a short story. Doing laundry is a short story. How do you make a story out of doing laundry? I can't. I don't know how. That's how most of my life is. How do I make... All of my life is just like little short stories that are 100% relatable, but they're boring. There's nothing interesting about it. So I've been trying to think of things in my life that are relatable, that are worth telling about, and they're somewhat interesting. And I'm struggling with that. I'm struggling I'm like, what the hell, dude? I gotta tell stories. What's going on in my life? I'm like, well, I just tell people about how I did laundry. I'm like, why would you do that? There's nothing there. There's nothing there. What do you guys? Oh, good morning, J Rips. I noticed when Don Rickles died, comedy died. Don Rickles. Woo. That's rapping is silly. Rapping is very silly at times. I noticed when Don Rickles, I heard Andrew suggested Dyer to Joe. I think Jay might get on Jerry before this year ends. That'd be cool. Jay Dyer would be, like I said, he'd be great to have on. I think, there's, like I was saying, even though podcasting is dead, there are still a swath of people Joe Rogan could have interesting conversations with. There's plenty of people. But, though he's interviewed so many people, like now there's less pull with some people. And I think it goes with cycles too. Like when the next election cycle comes up and he has the next potential president-elect on his podcast, that'll be a big deal. Right. I don't know who. Maybe it'll be J.D. Vance, and he'll have Gavin Newsom on, and he'll have I don't know who else might run, but he'll have those people on. And things going. There's seasons to things. But who? Yeah, I'm not. Andrew Wilson, I think, is definitely a turning point for podcasting, at least for Joe Rogan. It's a sign of the times. Streamers are more influential than ever. And the weird thing is, some of the most influential streamers are on TikTok, which is baffling to me. And Andrew Wilson, I think, is quite aware of it, right? I'm not, I don't know. I think he's aware of it too, but the real streaming platform isn't YouTube, it's TikTok, right? You really want a large audience, you stream on TikTok. You really want a young audience, you stream on TikTok. If you want millennials and Gen Xers and boomers, you stream on YouTube. I really don't believe YouTube's the place. Like, if you want to be a successful streamer, dude, I looking at myself now, I'm like, why don't I stream on TikTok? I should be a TikTok streamer. But aesthetically, I hate the vertical view. And the community of TikTok, I think it's a whole different bag of apples, or whatever the hell people say. But it's definitely the future. I think Andrew Wilson sees it. I see it. He's actually has the initiative to do it. Can you be a successful streamer on YouTube? Certainly. Can you still get thousands of people to watch you on YouTube? Certainly. But I think if you really want to be a prolific streamer, you have to be on TikTok. You have to capture that Gen Z audience. And it's a different kind of audience, Gen Z. You know what I mean? A lot of them, their screen is their phone. So like, they don't really care to watch stuff on a TV. They don't care to watch stuff on a computer. They don't, maybe a tablet. I don't know. But that's the audience you need to capture. You need to capture Gen Z if you want to be influential. And I don't know if, I don't care to be influential. I don't care to be popular. But you have to be on TikTok if you want those things. And Andrew Wilson is doing that. And I don't see any other streamers really taking advantage of TikTok like the way he is. It's very strategic. And I think it's a good idea. But, who am I? Good morning, Mr. Miyagi. Good to see you. I think I'm starting to notice that everyone is retarded. Essentially, yeah. I struggle with my moments too. I chalk it up to dehydration and genetics on my end. But yeah, everyone kind of is retarded. I was thinking about how retarded, I said I might talk about ICE. I was thinking about how retarded the people in Minneapolis are, where they essentially believe in no borders. There's no such thing as illegals, and everyone belongs in their state. But the irony that I'm looking at when I look at that situation is like, everyone belongs, but they still believe in borders, and they still believe some people should not be in their area, which is ICE, right? So it's like, everyone belongs except the federal government. Get out of our state, right? The real problem, I think, is that, people in Minneapolis don't see themselves as American. They see themselves as Minnesotans, right? They see themselves as not a part of the fabric of America, because most of Americans voted for Donald Trump. Most of Americans voted for deportations, and that's what they want. They want these people out of our country. And the Minnesotans see these people as Minnesotans. They see themselves as an inclusive people, but at the same time, they believe in borders. They believe some people shouldn't be in their state. And so they know exactly how other Americans feel, and they have the same views, but just about different people. They don't want the federal government there. The federal government doesn't belong in Minnesota. And I feel like the illegals don't not only belong in Minnesota, they don't belong in America. And now I'm hearing people are discussing the idea of amnesty for the illegals in our country, just letting all these illegals that we haven't rounded up yet just give them a pathway towards citizenship. And they're doing that in Spain. They're going to give, I think it's quite a few 100,000 immigrants in Spain just citizenship. They're just going to give them citizenship. And I think that's wild. And the idea is being floated around in America that we're just going to give citizenship to all the illegals who got here during Biden's 4 years and before that. Like, we're just going to give up. Like, oh, there's too many of you. You can stay. Which, I think it's not too far-fetched that if that happens, in the next election cycle. Not the midterms, but the next presidency. I'm sure that's going to be a platform the Democrats run on, where they ensure that no Republican can do an expulsion of illegals. So they're just going to, once they win the what is it called? Win the Congress and the Senate, and they win the presidency, they're going to pack the Supreme Court. They're going to, run through laws that allow illegals to get citizenship, so they can't ever be deported. Which, it's one way to solve the problem. It's one way. Make a lot, where do I go? That's kind of my point with the whole ICE things. What's up, Moon Soon? I think I saw you, dude. Good morning. Yeah, I do see you. No one's illegal, don't you know? Yeah, nobody's illegal. Man, I was born in East LA. That's not a bad place. Who protests in -11 weather? People who get paid. People who get paid. What's up, Capricorn? What's up? Good morning to you. But I went to make a short story long. Make a short story long. I don't have any, I just have short stories. That's my problem, dude. I went to a game store. For those who don't know, Mormons love board games. Okay, I play board games with my family during holidays. I play board games at times with neighbors, friends. And I also, I grew up playing a tabletop game called Warhammer Fantasy. And as I got older, I got into Warhammer 40K. Basically the gaming scene, besides board games with family, it was like a male space. It was a space for males. And I went into the game store, and in the game store, they have a huge LGBTQ mural, like a big rainbow, to let the LGBTQ people know it's a safe place and they're welcome here. Which is strange, because I went into the game store and it was packed, dude. It was absolutely packed. So many people. They were playing Magic the Gathering. And I went in there to look at plastic toys like a retard. Like I haven't grown up yet. And I was thinking of just how like all male-dominated spaces have been infiltrated. They've been co-opted. And now like Warhammer, Magic the Gathering, like they've ruined all these things. There was a time, I remember when Magic the Gathering did the Lord of the Rings set, and they made Aragorn black. And they made like a couple other characters black. And none of them, they never make them Japanese, right? Or they never make them Indian. Like what? They should, imagine if they made Aragorn an Indian. Not a Native American, an Indian. And they're trying to be inclusive. Why didn't they put Frodo in a wheelchair? It's so loud when he does that. It's a good sign. Did you notice Jeremy not acknowledge me? He feels my disappointment. Yeah, Jeremy's he's forgetting the people who were with him in the very beginning, man. He's super popular now. But Jeremy's hilarious. Do you ever play Candyland? Yes, I do play Candyland. I had to donate the most recent Candyland board set I got because it's completely New World Order coded. It's got like a black Candyland fairy godmother lady on it. It's got every demographic of person you could be on the board. It sucks. But I have played Candyland in the past 2 months, and then I got rid of it. I gotta buy a new one. Like it's like, where did Candyland go? I'm like, I think the dog ate it. We left it out. The dog ate the Candyland. I'll get you a new one. I'll get you the good one. I'll get you the good Candyland. But in this, and so Warhammer, Lord of the Rings, male-dominated area has been co-opted, right? It's been ruined. And there was a drama recently in Warhammer 40K. Nobody gives a shit about this, to be honest. But it's just, my point is, I'm trying to make a point about how no matter what you're interested in or grew up with, like, it's being ruined. In Warhammer 40K, there's an army, a sub-faction of plastic toys you can play with. And if you don't know what Warhammer 40K is, it's a tabletop game of war. So you build an army, you paint an army, and then you battle. You have a war with somebody else on a fairly large table. And one of the armies you could play with are the Adeptus Custodes, the super soldiers of the God Emperor of mankind, and they're golden bananas. They're not really bananas, but they're golden guys. And they're genetically modified humans. And recently, they changed the story with these golden soldiers, these superhuman soldiers, and they introduced the idea that some of these superhuman soldiers are actually women. And they released a new range of models of plastic toys for grown adult men. It's very sad, I know. And now you can put female heads on these bodies. You can make them women. And it's like they took one of the coolest things in the story of Warhammer, and they said, you know what would be cooler? If these superhuman soldiers, the best soldiers in mankind, were women. And they ruined it. And I feel like that's everything. You know what I mean? That's everywhere, all the time, all at once. Is they take a male-dominated space, they gayify it, they feminize it. And it's all over. It's really all over. They're removing all male-dominated spaces, and it's tragic. And then the female-dominated spaces on the other side of the spectrum are being infiltrated as well. Nobody really likes female sports, but you look at female sports. I used to play War and Order on my phone to pass the time. Got hooked. Had to delete. Yeah, phone addict. You got to be careful with games on your phone, dude. Those are. Good morning, by the way. Let them in. Those are dangerous gaming addictions. But you look at women's sports, and now we have men in women's sports stealing trophies, stealing medals. But they've essentially, I think this is a psychological operation that's being conducted to remove gender spaces. So there are no more there's no more gender spaces that are isolated by gender alone. So you pick anything. And you look at the NFL, right? And the NFL has cheerleaders, right? The Minnesota was like, oh, well, what would be cool if this is how Minnesota is part of the New World Order. What would be cool in Minnesota if we took the Vikings cheerleaders and added a man. We should put a man in there. There was another NFL team that added a man to their cheerleading space. But these even female-dominated spaces, they're just trying to insert men into them. And it's all across. And I'm trying to think of more spaces where people have that have been just usually isolated to gender. But it's one of the, I think, operations of the New World Order is to remove the where men get together, right? Remove the areas where women get together. And in I heard this on the podcast with, I forget who. But in England, they introduced a law potentially to encourage people to snitch on other people if they're at a pub or a bar, in other words, if they're having a conversation and the conversation seems to lead into extremist ideologies. So even a space that is male-dominated, the female tendency to gossip and snitch is being encouraged. Like if you hear a man and two men at a bar and they're having a conversation, you should eavesdrop. And if it sounds extremist, you should snitch on them, report, tattletale. Ascended, you ever watch a good women's tennis match? I don't know if there are any. But you know, I want there to be, you know, I still want there to be like a men's space. And you know, where is a men's space anymore? I don't even know. I don't know where they are or where they're at, or women's spaces for that matter. You know, where are they? And you know, another thing that I think is coming to America, I've talked about this briefly before, but in Germany and the European countries, the idea of a best friend is being discouraged, right? In schools. So if you're in a German school and the teacher starts to notice you have a budding relationship with somebody else and they're becoming your best friend, the teacher will insert themselves into that friendship and they'll discourage it and say, well, if you have a best friend, it's exclusion, it excludes other people. And it makes them feel as though that that they're not wanted or they're not a part of the group. So, you know, I think that's coming to America too. Even not only like socially shared spaces, like men's and women's groups, but just even the smaller, even, you know, fraction, micro down to just friendship, right? They don't even want people to have best friends because it excludes other groups of people. It's not a good thing to have best friends in Germany. It's excluding. I wonder how long that'll take to arrive to America and our educational system where people are saying, well, you shouldn't have a best friend. You should be friends with everyone, which I disagree with. I like the idea of best friends, quote unquote. I grew up with best friends and I enjoyed that. I enjoyed having, you know, my few friends that I got along with. And I can't imagine if I was forced to share that space with other people. I wouldn't have liked it. Not at all. What's up, Insane Wills? Good to see ya. Man's place is where he belongs and feels loved. Yeah. Some men's spaces, they'll never infiltrate. I feel like linemen's work. I feel like plumbing. Electrician jobs, you know, some of those areas, I don't think they'll ever be able to infiltrate, but they're going to try. They're going to try to do that. But you know, the world's changing rapidly. People are you know, it's one of the craziest things to realize as you get older and you're in your 30s and you start having children, and they stop making propaganda for you. Like, they don't really make propaganda for me anymore. They make propaganda for children, for 20-something-year-olds. And once you're in your mid-30s, all the propaganda you grew up with, they're bastardizing it. They're ruining it. They're taking all the things you grew up with and gayifying it. They're destroying it. And there's nothing you can do about it. Like the new He-Man movie. There's a new He-Man movie coming out. And I saw the trailer for it, and the guy is sitting at his desk, the potential He-Man, and he's got his name placard on his desk, and it has they, them. Oh no, it's he, him, not they, them. It's he, him, and just as if, you know, he's this strong masculine guy has been forced to accept the culture he lives in. And in the movie, too, I guess one of the main characters, I think his name's Man-at-Arms, which is a white guy in the cartoon, but they said, you know, what would be better? I have a great idea. What if he's black? And they made the character black because it's for a modern audience. You gotta take the red-haired white character and you gotta make him black. So, like, if you grew up with the He-Man propaganda, they took that and then they said, well, that's not for you anymore. How are we going to sell this movie if every character is white like they were in the cartoon? What are they going to do? And I had never watched He-Man when I was a kid. It was before my time. But I saw the trailer, and I was curious what the show was about. And so I played one episode of He-Man for one of my sons, and I watched it with him. And I was like, this is a high tea cartoon. high testosterone. And at the end of it, I had no clue they did this at the end of He-Man shows. They have an explicit message. And He-Man comes on after the show and he says, if you noticed, in this story that people try to take a shortcut or they don't do things the right way, it never works out. And he gives you the moral of this story. I was like, wow, dang, He-Man's got like a strong message at the end. He's trying to educate children on how to have a morally right life. What a good show. They don't make that anymore. Now they make shows and like, it's okay if you have two daddies, and it's okay if two girls kiss, and it's okay with this and that. And but He-Man, when it came out, I guess people would say it was, I don't know if the correct term is based, but like, oh, old He-Man cartoons are based, and now it's for a modern audience. I wonder how the movie will play out. But it is strange where like every movie, every show now, the people sitting around at a desk are talking about it, and they're remaking something old because they got no new ideas, and they're sitting there rubbing their hands, and they all look at each other and like, you know what? I got an idea. What if we make the character black? That's a great idea. Wonderful idea. Let's make him black. Which is, I think, it's just blatant psychological operations. What's the term people use? Demoralizing. A lot of this new propaganda is demoralizing on some level for the older generations that grew up with it. All the Star Wars shit sucked. And he's like, what would be a good idea for the new Star Wars movies? What if we make the protagonist a female, and we'll make her side protagonist, let's make him black. It's like, what the hell? And you know what would be cool? What if we kill Han Solo and we make Luke Skywalker completely fucking irrelevant? I mean, you name anything you grew up with if you're a millennial or Gen Xer, and you name any of the stuff you grew up with, they've absolutely taken it from you, stepped on it, ruined it, and then remade it. They demoralize you, which is crazy for a new audience, a modern audience. And I can't think of anything looking back where they've remade something from the past and it was better than before. And true to the narrative. I was thinking about Lord of the Rings, and I saw this. If you don't know, Lord of the Rings has a show on what's it called? Amazon, The Rings of Power, and they made like a lot of the characters. It's a good example of like how woke. I won't play this whole thing. But I saw this, I was like, someone's got a sense of humor. Someone's got a sense of humor about this Lord of the Rings stuff and taking it and making it for a modern audience.
Rings, give me all them rings. Rings, give me all them rings. Nigga, rings, give me all them rings. On my mama's fucking life, I'ma have them rings, nigga. One nigga all in, one nigga to find them. One nigga to bring them all in darkness and bind them. I say one nigga to rule them.
I don't even play the whole thing, but it's absolute to me. I find it hilarious, right? They took Lord of the Rings and they're like, you know what? Let's make a black hobbit, a black elf. Let's make one of the queens of the island black. Absolutely, none of it's according to J.R.R. Tolkien, but, who gives a shit? Rings. I was like, damn, that shit's funny, dude. That's everything, dude. That's everything in our culture. And, I don't know, like, what's the solution? The solution is to make new stories. But I feel like creativity's died in our country. And original thoughts are few and far in between. That wasn't a parody. No, that was real. You could do many things with black. Yeah, yeah. Well, here's the thing, London, man. There's so many original stories that could be told. And I think that, in America, there was a time, like, I think they call it black exploitation films, right? They had like Black Dynamite, and they had all these original stories with black actors, black casts, and you know what I mean. It was their own storytelling. There was like a time in American cinema where I think the term was black exploitation films. They made all these films for black people. And the black people were telling their own stories, were making their own stories. And then now they're just saying, you know what, let's just take all the stories with white people and put black in them. They stopped telling and making their own stories. Now they're just they're taking old stories. Like, you know what would be really cool if we make Achilles black. And it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate they do that, because I don't know why they have to. And it's weird. Like, and then this idea where people who are disabled or people who are not who are a minority, they need to be seen. They'll just throw like somebody in a wheelchair in a movie. You're like, what the hell is this? They'll throw in some disorder like autism. Like, oh, now somebody needs to have autism in this show. They need to be represented. You know what this show needs? It needs a gay character. Lesbian character as well would be really, really nice. And if we could fit in a trans character, that would be even better. We need to find a way where we can have a trans actor in this story. And that's the world we live in. That's how things are. Everything's being... I think it's just a symptom of being old. If you're young right now, you don't really even give a shit. And I think it's because, the Gen Z population, they didn't grow up with pop culture. They didn't grow up with cable TV. If you grew up with cable TV, you had all the channels. And on all the channels, they were doing reruns of all the shows from the 50s to the 60s. Well, sometimes. I remember Leave It to Beaver being on the TV when I was a kid. There was a channel with Leave It to Beaver. And I didn't watch it. I was like, what is this? Sucks. They had all the old cartoons, Looney Tunes, all of that stuff on Cartoon Network. They had, the 70s and 80s sitcoms. They had Bill Cosby. What other shows do they have? Whatever. They had them all, right? So if you grew up in the 90s, early 2000s, you had cable TV. You were familiar with not only your culture at that time, but all the culture that came before you. But Gen Z, they didn't have the TV like we have it. Gen Alpha doesn't have the TV like we had it. So all the culture that was before them, they don't know a thing about it, right? Essentially what's the outcome of that? The powers that be can take that old culture, reimagine it, and then present it to them. And they have no attachment to how things were before them, or they don't really give a shit because they never watched any of the old stuff. They were never aware of the old culture because they grew up with a tablet. They grew up with YouTube. So anything they make now is kind of still new to them, and Gen Z has no attachment to how things used to be. Then He-Man was never on TV for them, right? It was never. They don't have any problems. They don't have any problems with the way the world is. Blaxploitation movies had fire soundtracks, though. I'm sure they did. Yeah. I don't remember if I might have seen one movie. But not all of it. But the world's changing. Things aren't made for me anymore. I just accept it. And it'd be weird too if I was like, why aren't they propagandizing me? Where's my propaganda film? And the worst part is, in a couple years, dude, there will be a movie made for me, and it'll be about like a middle-aged 50-year-old white guy who's just trying to get by in the world. And you're like, shit, dude. Right when movies Like they make some boomer movies of old people. It's like, oh no, when the propaganda is made for you, it's just a depressing reminder of how old you are. And I think I just have to accept that propaganda is not made for me anymore and move on with my life and give up the idea that they're going to make a cool movie for me or anything exciting. Everything they make now is it's for the younger folks. And, it's weird to grow out of propaganda. You never think it'll happen. One moment in your life, everything's made for you. Everything seems exciting. And then the next moment, nothing relates. You're like, oh, shit. That's a real marker of getting old. It's just, and you know what? That's fine. Propaganda sucks anyways. Being propagandized too. It's weird how people want to be propagandized too. Like, I want a Native American in the laundry detergent commercial. I want propaganda to be sold to me. I want to feel represented when they sell me laundry detergent with harmful chemicals and what do they call them? Neurodisruptors that leach into your clothes and then leach into your body. I want to be sold something. When I watch something, I want to feel compelled to buy it. I want to see somebody who looks like me sell me shit. It's like that's the wrong thing, dude. People are fighting for representation in capitalism so they could feel like they can be more compelled to buy trash and useless things. That's the weirdest part. It's like, and I'm arguing for it a little bit. I'm like, I want to be convinced even more to buy things I don't need or harmful things. I was, you're always exposed to how things are killing you on the internet. It was the worst part. I saw this clip of how laundry detergents have all these terrible things in them. And then I saw another clip right after how, these types of eggs aren't actually healthy eggs. The feed of the animal increases some type of unhealthy thing that's bad for your health. I'm all shit, dude. Everything's trying to kill me in this world. Everything. I don't know what to do about it. Oh, boy. Are you mad as hell yet? I'm mad as hell. I'm just accepting. We can all share the blunt. Yeah, let's all burn one down. Check out the Superfly soundtrack. The Superfly one. I think that might be good. Where am I at, dude? I got to end the show. I'm gonna probably do a weekend show. I've built up a lot of content. I built up a lot of content. Not a lot actually, just quite a few videos. I want to end the show, but I was like, I wanted to talk about this, wanted to talk about that. Oh well. Rangs. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate it, spending some time with me this morning. I might do a weekend show, and the plan is to do a monologue, share a reaction with a few videos, and I'm trying to find some long form reaction to discuss. See if I can do a long form. I want to get more into long form reaction. I want to break something down. I don't know if my attention span will allow for it. But either way, thank you so much for spending some time with me this morning. I hope you all have a great day. Really means a lot. God bless you all. I will see you hopefully when I see you next time, whenever that is. When will that be? Maybe Saturday. Maybe not though. Maybe I'll take a day off. Either way, God bless. See you guys later. Not this one. How about this one?